Hello everyone, this is Refresh, and I'm here to pit these two Throne of Eldraine sealed decks up against the Face the Hydra challenge deck from Theros. We'll be playing two games, first on normal difficulty with 3 Hydra heads, and then on hard mode. And we'll be using 2 hero cards for this game. We'll be using the Harvester, which says tap, draw a card, then discard a card, and the Warrior, which says tap, target creature you control gains haste until end of turn. Because I only have one copy of each of these cards, we're going to be applying these cards simultaneously to both decks. We'll go ahead and get started by drawing our opening hands. It draws an island, a mountain, Redcap Raiders, island, mountain, island, and Slaying Fire. This is probably way too slow a hand to keep, and so we are going to mulligan. And because this is multiplayer, we'll get a free mulligan. So we'll go ahead and take our free mulligan. Second hand has an Ogre Errant, Unexplained Vision, Island, Searing Barrage, Island, Mountain, and Island. This is also an incredibly slow hand, and so we are going to mulligan down to 6. It now has a Tome Raider, an Island, a Scorching Dragonfire, Unexplained Vision, Jousting Dummy, and Sir Eleonora the Discerning. This is not a great hand because we don't have any red mana here. But I think we're going to keep this anyways because we don't want to go down to 5 and we can at least cast one spell in here. We'll take the Scorching Dragonfire and put it on the bottom because we don't have any red mana anyways. Rakdos draws a Rimrock Knight, Jousting Dummy, Swamp, Stormfist Crusader, Inspiring Veteran, Swamp, and Barge in. This is not a very good hand because we don't have any red mana and multiple colors of cards here. We somehow drew our one white card as well, and so we are going to mulligan this using our free mulligan. Rakdos' second hand has a Searing Barrage, Signpost, Scarecrow, Claim the Firstborn, Swamp, 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 and Mountain. This is also a terrible hand because it's incredibly slow and it doesn't do very much. And so we're going to mulligan this and go to 6. Alright, now we have a Stormfist Crusader, Lost Legion, Castle Embereth, Swamp, Barrow Witches, Malevolent Noble, and Searing Barrage. This is a better hand somehow just because we have both of our colors here. So we'll keep this hand and we're going to take the Searing Barrage and stick it on the bottom. Turn 1, this is multiplayer, so each deck will draw. It draws a Searing Barrage and Rakdos draws a Scorching Dragonfire. We will play the Castle Embereth. This is a land. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain. You can tap it to add red or pay 1 red, tap it, and creature you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. It enters the battlefield tapped because we don't control the mountain. And then it will play an island, and then we'll pass to the Hydra, who will cast the topmost card. This is a Noxious Hydra Breath. Choose 1. Noxious Hydra Breath deals 5 damage to each player or destroy each tapped non-head creature. We'll choose to destroy each tapped non-head creatures because we don't have any tapped creatures. We'll take 3 damage from the assembled heads to go to 17 each. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Draws a Weaselback Redcap and will discard the Searing Barrage. Rakdos draws a Mountain and we will discard the Barrow Witches. Then we'll untap. Draws an Island. Rakdos draws a Rankle, Master of Pranks. Rakdos will play a Swamp. Will play an Island. We'll tap both of these over here and we'll play the Jousting Dummy. This is a 2/1 Artifact Scarecrow Knight, and for 3, Jousting Dummy gets +1/+0 until end of turn. We'll tap both of these and we will play the Stormfist Crusader. This is a 2/2 Human Knight with Menace. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card and loses 1 life. And then we will immediately use the Warrior to give both of these haste, and we will attack one of the Hydra heads. The Hydra will die, and it has Hero's Reward. When Hydra head leaves the battlefield, each player gains 2 life. It left the battlefield, so we'll gain 2 life apiece to go back up to 19. And then we'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There's 1 new Hydra head, and now it will be the Hydra's turn. The Hydra will cast the topmost card. This is Hydra's Impenetrable Hide. It's a sorcery. Each head gains indestructible until the end of the Hydra's next turn. We'll put this on top just to remind us that it has cast this card, and then we'll take 3 damage from each head to go to 16 each. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Draws a Folio of Fancies, which I think we're going to keep, and we will pitch the Weaselback Redcap because we can't cast it. And then Rakdos will draw a Swamp. We'll hold on to the Swamp, and we will pitch the Scorching Dragonfire. And then we will untap. And then we will go to our upkeep, in which the Stormfist Crusader triggers will each lose a life and draw a card. Izzet draws a Castle Embereth. Rakdos draws another Castle Embereth. And then we will draw for the turn. Izzet draws a Charm Sleep, and Rakdos draws a Barge In. We will play a island over here, and we will play a swamp over here. Izzet will tap 3, and we will cast the Tome Raider. This is a 1/1 fairy with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. We will draw an Embereth Shieldbreaker, and then Rakdos will tap 3 mana. We will cast the Lost Legion. This is a 2/3 Spirit Knight. When it enters the battlefield, scry 2. So we'll go ahead and take a look at 2 things. And we do not want the Festive Funeral or the Tempting Witch, so we'll stick them both on the bottom. Alright, because the heads have indestructible until their next turn, there's no point in attacking this time around. So we are going to pass the turn to the Hydra. The Hydra casts the next card, which is Strike the Weak Spot, destroy target head. If that head was elite, the Hydra takes an extra turn after this one. We'll go ahead and destroy one of these heads. We'll gain 2 life apiece to go up to 17 each. Then we'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are no new heads. We'll take 2 damage from the remaining heads to go down to 15. And at the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Izzet draws an island, and we will discard the Charm Sleep. Rakdos draws a swamp, and we will discard the Barge In. We'll untap. And we'll go to our upkeep, where the Stormfist Crusader triggers. We'll go down to 14 each, and then we'll each draw a card. Izzet draws a Lock Dragon, and Rakdos draws a Weaselback Redcap. And then we'll draw for the turn. Izzet draws a Raging Redcap, and Rakdos draws a Swamp. We will play a mountain over here, and we will play the island over here. And then Izzet will tap out all their islands, and will cast the Lock Dragon. This is a 3/2 dragon with flying. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. It enters the battlefield, so we may discard a card, and we will discard the fairly low impact Folio of Fancies here, and draw a Ogre Errant. And then Rakdos will tap out, and we'll cast Rankle Master of Pranks. This is a 3/3 legendary fairy rogue with flying and haste, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, choose any number. Each player discards a card, each player loses 1 life and draws a card, or each player sacrifices a creature. And then we will go to combat. We will use the Warrior to give the Lock Dragon haste, and then we'll attack with Rankle as well as the Lock Dragon. The Lock Dragon, when it attacks, will use its trigger to discard a card and then draw a card. We'll go ahead and discard the Embereth Shieldbreaker at this point, and we will draw an island. We still don't have any mountains, which is kind of frustrating. And then we will kill both of the Hydra heads. We'll gain 4 life from destroying both Hydra heads to take us to 18 each. And then we'll reveal 4 cards to see if there are any new heads. There's 1 Ravenous Brute head. And then it is the end of the turn. We will pass to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is a Ravenous Brute head. There are 2 Ravenous Brute heads here, so we'll take 4 damage apiece to take us down to 14 each. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Izzet draws a Ginger Brute, and we'll discard the Ginger Brute. Rakdos draws a Signpost Scarecrow, and we will discard a Swamp. We'll untap. The Stormfist Crusader will trigger. We'll go down to 13 each, and then we'll draw a card on our upkeep. Izzet draws a Mountain, and Rakdos draws a Raging Redcap. Then we'll draw for turn. Izzet draws an island, and Rakdos draws a swamp. Rakdos will play the Castle Embereth, and Izzet will play the mountain. Izzet will tap 5 and play Sir Eleanor the Discerning. This is a star 4 legendary human knight, and its power is equal to the number of cards in your hand. That is 6 as of right now. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, and spells your opponent's cast that target Sir Eleanor cost 2 more to cast. We draw a Charmed Sleep, so Sir Eleanor is now a 7. Rakdos will spend 2 mana to cast a Malevolent Noble. This is a 2/2 human noble with 2 sacrifice an artifact or another creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on Malevolent Noble. and we'll spend 3 mana to cast the Raging Redcap. This is a 1/2 Goblin Knight with double strike. And then we'll tap the Warrior to give the Raging Redcap haste. And we'll also give Sir Eleonora haste. We'll attack with Sir Eleonora into the Ravenous Brutehead. We'll also attack with Wrinkle Master of Pranks as well as the Lock Dragon into the other Ravenous Brutehead. And on attack, the Lock Dragon will trigger and we will discard an island and we'll draw and we get a mountain. And then Wrinkle will trigger, but we're going to ignore those triggers because we are flush with cards right now. And so we'll destroy both of these Ravenous Brute heads. These are 0/6 elite heads, and when they leave the battlefield, each player gains 2 life and draws a card. And so we are going to gain 4 life apiece to go up to 17 and draw 2 cards. Izzet draws a Redcap Raiders and a Dwarven Mine. Rakdos draws a Rimrock Knight and a Plains. And then we will reveal 4 cards to see if there are any new heads. There is a Hydra head. You've seen this before. It's the 0/3 head. And we also have the Snapping Fang head. This is the 0/8 elite head. At the beginning of the Hydra's end step, Snapping Fang head deals 1 damage to each player. And then we will pass the turn to the Hydra, which will cast the topmost card. This is another Hydra head. We now have 2 Hydra heads and the Snapping Fang head. The Snapping Fang head will deal 1 additional damage. So that is 5 damage, and that'll take us down to 12 each. At the end of the last turn, Izzet needed to discard down to 7, so they will discard the Charmed Sleep, and they will discard an island. And then we will use the Harvester. Izzet draws a mountain, and will discard the Redcap Raiders. Rakdos will draw a Barrow Witches, and we will discard the Signpost Scarecrow. We'll untap. Stormfist Crusader will trigger. We'll lose a life to go to 11 each. Then we'll draw on our upkeep. Izzet draws a Crystal Slipper. Rakdos draws an Inspiring Veteran. We'll draw for turn. Izzet draws a Slaying Fire, and Rakdos draws an Epic Downfall. We will play a Plains over here. We will play a Mountain over here. Sir Eleanor is 8, and we have enough creatures to take down the other 2, so we'll go ahead and go to combat. Sir Eleanor will attack the Snapping Fang head. The Lock Dragon will attack one of the Hydra heads, and Wrinkle will attack the other Hydra head. This should kill all 3 of these. The Snapping Fang head has a Hero's Reward, which says when it leaves the battlefield, each player gains 4 life and draws a card. So we'll get 8 life for these 3 creatures and draw a card each, taking us up to 19. Izzet draws a Runaway together, and Rakdos draws a Mountain. We'll reveal 6 cards to see if there are any new heads. We have a Ravenous Brute head, and we also have a Savage Vigor head. This is a 0/8 elite head at the beginning of the Hydra's end step. Reveal the top card of the Hydra's library, and the Hydra casts that card. We forgot to use the trigger for the Lock Dragon, so we will do so. And we will pitch the Slaying Fire and draw a Redcap Raiders. And then on our second main phase, we'll tap out for Izzet, and we'll cast the Raging Redcap, and we will also cast the Redcap Raiders. These are 3/2 Goblin Warriors. When it attacks, you may tap an untapped non-human creature you control. If you do, Redcap Raiders gets +1/+1 and trample until end of turn. Rakdos will tap a Plains and a Castle Embereth to play the Inspiring Veteran. This is a 2/2 human knight, and other knights you control get +1/+1. We'll also spend 2 mana to cast the Rimrock Knight. This is a 3/1 Dwarf Knight, and it can't block. And we'll spend 1 more red mana to cast the Weaselback Redcap. This is a 1/1 Goblin Knight, and for 1 and a red, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And then we are going to pass to the Hydra. The Hydra casts the topmost card, which is Unified Lunge. It deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of heads on the battlefield. We'll immediately take 2 damage, taking us to 17. And then at the end of the turn, the Hydra will cast another card off the Savage Vigor head. This is Grown for the Stump. Put exactly 2 cards named Hydra head onto the battlefield from the Hydra's graveyard. And then we'll be taking a total of 6 damage to go down to 11 each. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Izzet draws an Animating Fairy and will discard the Runaway together. Rakdos draws a Jousting Dummy and will discard the Epic Downfall. And then we'll untap. The Stormfist Crusader will trigger. We'll lose a life to go 10 each, and we'll both draw a card in our upkeep, so drawing 2 cards. Izzet draws a Weapon Rack, and draws a mountain. Rakdos draws a Steel Claw Lance and a Malevolent Noble. Izzet will play a mountain, and Rakdos will play a swamp. Sir Eleonora is again an 8/4. Rakdos will play a Steel Claw Lance. This is an equipment, and equipped creature gets +2/+2, and you can spend 1 to equip a knight or 3 to equip anything else. Go ahead and spend 1 mana to equip this to the Raging Redcap, making it a 3/4 double striker. And then we'll go to combat, and we will attack the Savage Figurehead with Sir Eleonora. We'll attack the Ravenous Brutehead with the Raging Redcap. It's actually a 4/5 because of the Inspiring Veteran. And then we will attack a Hydra Head with the Lock Dragon, and we will attack a other Hydra Head with Rankle Master of Pranks to remove everything from the field. All of the Hydras die. We'll be gaining a total of 10 life, and we'll be drawing 2 cards from the various heroes rewards. That'll take us up to 20. Izzet will draw a mountain and a Weaselback Redcap. Rakdos will draw a mountain and a swamp. And we forgot the Lock Dragon trigger. We can use it if we want. We'll discard a mountain and we'll draw a island. We'll spend 4 mana to cast the Weapon Rack. This is an artifact. It enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. You can tap it to move a +1/+1 counter from it onto a target creature. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. And then we'll spend the remaining 3 mana to cast the Adventure half of Animating Fairy, which is Bring to Life. It's a sorcery. A target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact creature, and put 4 +1/+1 counters onto it. It exiles, and then we will give it 4 more counters to make it a 7/7. And now it is a creature. Rakdos will tap out and play another Malevolent Noble as well as a Jousting Dummy. We have to reveal 8 cards to see if there are any new heads. We have a Ravenous Brutehead and a Shrieking Titan Head. This is a 0/8 Elite Head. At the beginning of the Hydra's end step, each player discards a card. And then we will pass to the Hydra, which will cast the topmost card. This is Hydra's Impenetrable Hide. Izzet will tap 4 mana and cast the Ogre Errant. This is a 3/4 Ogre Knight. Whenever it attacks, another target attacking knight gains menace until end of turn. And then we will spend another 2 mana to cast the Crystal Slipper. This is an equipment. An equipped creature gets +1/+1 haste, and you can equip for 1. And then we'll spend another mana, and we will cast the Weaselback Redcap. We've seen this before. And then we are going to pass the turn to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is Groan for the Stump. We've seen this before. We'll get 2 Hydra heads from its graveyard and put them back onto the battlefield. At the end of the turn, we're going to take 4 damage each to take us down to 15. And then we will go to our turn. We'll untap. Izzet draws a Corridor Monitor, and Rakdos draws a Bacon to a Pie. Rakdos will play a Swamp. Izzet will play the Castle Embreth. And then it should be trivial to knock out these creatures, so we'll attack with the Weapon Rack into the Ravenous Brutehead. We will attack with the Ogre Errant into another one of the heads. And then we will attack with the Raging Redcap into the final head. This should kill them all. We'll gain 6 life and draw a card each, taking us up to 21. Izzet draws a Scorching Dragonfire, and Rakdos draws a Witch's Cottage. We will reveal 4 cards to see if there are any new heads. There is a Hydra Head. Izzet doesn't want to die, and so Izzet will spend 2 mana to cast Scorching Dragonfire, targeting the Hydra Head. It's an instant. It deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. It is exiled. And then we'll gain 2 life to go to 23 each. And then we'll reveal 2 more cards to see if there are any new heads. There's another new head. And then Rakdos will cast Bacon to a Pie. This is an instant. It says destroy target creature, create a food token. Create a food token right here. This head will die. We'll gain another 2 life to go to 25 each. And then we'll reveal 2 more cards. There is another Hydra Head still. And we don't have a way of getting rid of them, it looks like. And so we're going to pass the turn to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is Disorienting Glower. Players can't cast spells until the Hydra's next turn. We'll take 1 damage to go to 24 each. And then we will go to our turn. We'll untap. And then we'll draw. Is unable to draw, so they will instantly lose. Rakdos will draw. They get a mountain. We'll play the Witch's Cottage. This is a swamp. A Witch's Cottage enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other swamps. And when it enters the battlefield untapped, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. We'll take a Barrow Witches and stick it on our library. Then we'll go to combat and we will attack with the Raging Redcap again. Finish off the Hydra head. We'll gain 2 more life to go up to 26. We'll reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There is another Hydra head. And then we will spend 5 mana and cast Barrow Witches. This is a 3/4 human warlock, and when it enters the battlefield, return target night card from your graveyard to your hand. We'll grab this Weaselback Redcap. Spend another mana to cast the Weaselback Redcap. And then we'll pass to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is a Hydra head. We'll take 2 damage from the heads to go down to 24. And then we will untap. Rakdos draws a Barrow Witches. We'll play a Mountain. We'll go to combat. We'll attack with the Raging Redcap and the Rimrock Knight to finish off these 2 heads. We'll gain 4 more life to go up to 28 and reveal 4 cards to see if there are any new heads. And there are no new heads, and so although Izzet has perished, the Throne of Eldraine sealed decks have still managed to defeat the Hydra in one of the longest games I've ever played. We'll be right back for hard mode. Alright, it's time for hard mode. We have 4 Hydra heads assembled and we will get started. Izzet draws a Mountain, Searing Barrage, Mountain, Runaway Together, Island, Mountain, and Raging Redcap. This is not an ideal hand, but I think we can make it work, so we'll keep it. Rakdos draws a Tempting Witch, Raging Redcap, Signpost Scarecrow, Swamp, Malevolent Noble, Inspiring Veteran, and Mountain. This is not an ideal hand, but I think we keep this one as well. In our first turn, we will play a Mountain over here, and we will play a Mountain over here, and then we will pass to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is a Ravenous Brute head. We'll take 6 damage from the assembled heads to go down to 14 each, and then we will use the Harvester at the end of the turn. Izzet will draw a Slaying Fire, and we will discard the Searing Barrage. Rakdos will draw a Mountain, and we will discard the Tempting Witch. We'll untap. Izzet draws a Scorching Dragonfire, and Rakdos draws a Searing Barrage. We will play the Swamp over here. We'll play an Island over here. And then we will spend 2 mana over here to cast the Malevolent Noble. And then we will pass to the Hydra, because we can't kill anything. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is Unified Lunge. It deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of heads on the battlefield. With that trigger on the stack, we're going to tap these 2, and we're going to cast Scorching Dragonfire, targeting one of the Hydra heads. This will kill the Hydra head. It exiles, and will gain 2 life apiece to go up to 16. And then the Hydra will reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are no new heads. So we will take 4 damage plus another 5 damage for a total of 9 damage. That will take us down to 7 life. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Izzet draws an Island, and Rakdos draws a Jousting Dummy. Izzet will discard the Runaway Together, and Rakdos will discard the Signpost Scarecrow. We'll untap. Izzet will draw an Island, and Rakdos will draw an Epic Downfall. Izzet will play a Mountain. We'll tap everything, and we will play the Raging Redcap. Rakdos will play their Mountain, and we will tap everything. And we will also play a Raging Redcap. And then we will tap the Warrior to give each of the Raging Redcaps haste, making them hit for 2, and since we can only kill 1 Hydra head, we will attack everybody into the Ravenous Brute head to do a total of 6 damage to finish it off. The Ravenous Brute head dies, and will gain 2 life apiece to go up to 9 each, And we'll each draw a card. Izzet draws a Crystal Slipper, and Rakdos will draw a Mountain. And then we will reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There is a Savage Vigorhead. We've seen this one before. And then we will pass to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is a Shrieking Titan head. And then we will cast another card because of the Savage Vigorhead, which is strike the weak spot, destroy target head. If that head was elite, the Hydra takes an extra turn after this one. We can't really afford the Hydra to take an extra turn here, so we're actually just going to strike one of these regular Hydra heads down, and we'll go get 2 life to go up to 11 each. And then we will reveal 2 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are no new heads. And then the Hydra will trigger the Shrieking Titan head, so we'll each discard a card. Izzet will discard an island, and Rakdos will discard the Epic Downfall. And then we will take 6 damage to go to 5 each. And then we will use the Harvester at the end of the turn. Izzet will draw a Jousting Dummy, and we will discard the island. Rakdos will draw a Rimrock Knight, and we will discard the Searing Barrage. We'll untap. Izzet will draw an Unexplained Vision, and Rakdos will draw a Swamp. Izzet will play the Mountain. Rakdos will play the Swamp. Izzet will spend 2 mana to play the Crystal Slipper, and then we'll spend 1 mana to equip it to the Raging Redcap. We will go to combat, and the Raging Redcap over here will attack the Savage Vigorhead. So will the Malevolent Noble. The Raging Redcap over here will attack a regular Hydra head. And then Rakdos will spend 1 red mana to cast Boulder Rush on the Rimrock Knight. That's an instant. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. This gets exiled. And then that makes the Redcap a 3/2 double striker. And that will do a total of 8 damage to finish off the Savage Vigorhead, while the other Hydra head is killed by the regular Raging Redcap. These 2 die. We'll gain 6 life and draw 1 card. That'll take us up to 11. Izzet draws a Mountain, and Rakdos draws a Weaselback Redcap. And then we will reveal 4 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are no new heads. And then Rakdos will spend 1 mana to cast the Weaselback Redcap, and 2 mana to cast the Jousting Dummy. And then we will pass to the Hydra. The Hydra will cast the topmost card, which is Hydra's Impenetrable Hide. Each head gains indestructible until the end of the Hydra's next turn. So these are indestructible. We'll be forced to discard a card each. And so Izzet will discard the Slaying Fire, and Rakdos will discard the Inspiring Veteran. And then we will take 3 damage from the heads to go down to 8. We'll put this here to remind ourselves that the heads cannot be defeated. And then we will use the Harvester at the end of the turn. Izzet draws a Castle Embereth, and will discard the Mountain. Rakdos draws a Castle Embereth, and we'll discard the Mountain. We'll untap. Izzet will draw a Lock Dragon, and Rakdos will draw a Swamp. Rakdos will play the Castle Embereth. Izzet will play the Castle Embereth. There's no point in attacking this turn because we cannot kill any of these creatures. So we will just build up our forces here. Izzet will spend 5 mana and cast the Unexplained Vision. It's a sorcery, draw 3 cards, and if at least 3 blue mana are spent to cast the spell, scry 3. Izzet draws a Gingerbrute, a Dwarven Mine, and a Raging Redcap. Rakdos will pass, and we will go to the Hydra's next turn. We'll cast the topmost card, which is a Hydra head. We'll each have to discard a card. Izzet will discard the Gingerbrute, and Rakdos will discard the Swamp. And then we'll be taking 4 damage each to go to 4. And then we will go to our turn. We'll untap. Izzet draws a Charm Sleep, and Rakdos draws a Swamp. Rakdos doesn't have a whole lot to do. We'll play the Swamp, and Izzet will play the Dwarven Mine. We'll get a Dwarf for our troubles. Rakdos will go ahead and pay 2 mana to play the Rimrock Knight as well. And we'll tap the warrior to give the Rimrock Knight and the Dwarf haste. We will attack into the Shrieking Titan head. We'll go the Raging Redcap and the Dwarf, as well as the Rimrock Knight, for a total of 8 damage. We will also attack a Hydra head with the Weaselback Redcap, and another Hydra head with the Jousting Dummy and the Raging Redcap. That should finish off all of their creatures, so all of them die. We'll gain 8 life apiece and draw a card each, taking us back up to 12. Izzet draws a corridor monitor, and Rakdos draws a Malevolent Noble. And then the Hydra will reveal 6 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are 2 new heads, a Ravenous Brute head and a Hydra head. And then at the end of the turn, we'll spend a couple mana here, and we will cast the Malevolent Noble, and we'll spend all of our mana here as well. Cast a Lock Dragon, which will enter the battlefield. We'll discard the Charm Sleep to draw a Mountain, and we will spend the last 2 mana to cast the Jousting Dummy. And then we'll pass to the Hydra, which will cast the topmost card, and that is Distract the Hydra. Each player may sacrifice a creature. Each player who sacrifices a creature this way chooses the head and taps it. Each player who didn't sacrifice a creature loses 3 life. We will sacrifice the Dwarf token over here. And over here, I think we can go ahead and sacrifice the Jousting Dummy. We'll tap these both, so we'll take no damage this turn. And then we will untap and go back to our turn. Izzet draws an island, and Rakdos draws a Castle Embereth. Rakdos will play the Castle Embereth. Izzet will play the island. We'll go to combat. We will attack the Ravenous Brute head with the Lock Dragon and the Rimrock Knight. We'll attack the remaining head with the Weaselbeck Redcap and pump it to make it a 3/1. This should kill both of these as well. This will get us 4 life and draw us a card each, taking us up to 16. Izzet draws an island, and then Rakdos draws a Scorching Dragonfire. We should note that we could have used the Lock Dragon's ability, so we'll discard the Mountain and draw a Redcap Raiders. And then we'll reveal 4 cards to see if there are any new heads. There are no new heads, and so in a much faster and easier game, the Throne of Eldraine sealed decks defeat the Hydra. Let me know what your thoughts were about the games in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit like. If you'd like to see more of these videos, you can subscribe. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.